I just want to say first off, congratulations on your directorial debut. I've
Thank
seen
you.
Marmalade twice now, and I must say it's such a fun and eccentric Bonnie and Clyde-esque tale, packed with such great performances from Joe Keery and Camilla Morone. I have to ask though, between me and you, how much was the hair and makeup budget for Joe Keery's fabulous hairdo in the movie?
Yeah, more than I'd like to admit. A good wig is like pricey, but man, we
Was it
shot.
more or less than the Moon Pie's budget?
No, Moon Pies was a sponsor, so we asked them if they would
Oh.
get involved with the film, and they were like, "Yep, absolutely." So we got boxes of moon pies. Like everybody was eating moon pies on set. It was
That was the craft services like go-to
exactly.
meal then.
Yeah.
Well, besides from the great hair, Carrie and his co-stars give such vibrant performances, and with the variety of interesting characters you play throughout your acting career, did you take any inspiration from characters that you played to develop these characters we see in the film?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think, the whole idea of this film started with, as an actor for over 20 years now, people have asked me like, wow, you've played all these wild characters. Like, if you could play anything else, what would you play? And I never had an answer for that. It was always like, oh, I don't know. I wait until I read a script and it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. But if I were to create characters out of thin air, what would they be? And then that's kind of how I started writing the script. It was like, oh yeah, and the more I was writing, I was like, oh, I would love to direct this. I'm just fallen so in love with the characters in this world. So then it was about like, oh, how can I write really challenging roles, really juicy roles for some great actors. And it's a challenge. Like each of these characters has a weird duality to them. They have to remain in this like weird kind of whimsical world. And
Mhm.
we wanted to play into some stereotypes, into some tropes of characters you've probably seen before on screen, and then flip that upside down. So that was all part of it when we went into casting, was like, can we find people who can really deliver? And boy, did I get lucky.
You definitely did. So, like, curious. So, like, did you kind of like develop these characters in a sense like this is a character like I would love to play, but let me get in the director chair and give someone a chance to play this like wonderful character that I think needs to be crafted for the big screen?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, any writer writing a script, right? It's coming from them. So there's a little piece of them in all the characters that they write, and probably pieces of me that I'm not proud to admit, with like, shades of Marmalade and Baron and
Mm.
Otis and everybody, it's kind of like it for sure. It was like pulling from the well of my own life and from characters I played in the past and just imagination, right? And then it was kind of, okay, now how can I give these characters real voices, and then how can we cast them that they can bring a sort of gravity and a sort of a realness to it. And then hopefully you have chemistry between them as well. The movie lives or dies on Baron and Marmalade's chemistry, and just that first day on set, seeing Joe and Camilla, I was like, oh my God, it's just electric, and you're like, thank God, it's gonna work, it's gonna work.
It really did. Their relationship really reminded me of the characters from Pulp Fiction, Honey Bunny and Pumpkin.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
thought they were like so perfect. I was like, this is like the younger version of them, like coming to life in like their tale in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been like a huge fan of the Bonnie and Clyde genre. So it's sort of like, rooting for these people who are doing horrible things and are on the run for the most part. So it was fun going back and watching, yeah, like Pulp Fiction, and watching Natural Born Killers and Gun Crazy and True Romance, and all these movies that I've just loved for so long. And it was kind of like, oh, that's cool. We can sort of like steal that and sort of
Yeah.
run with that and then do our own version of it and sort of, play around with it all. It's of course it's been done a million times, but it's like, how can we do it just a little bit differently?
You worked with a range of directors from Clint Eastwood to Steve Carr. Did you take any insight from their acting approach and apply it to your first time directing?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a major advantage as an actor, I think, being on sets for so many years, working with different directors from established like legends. I worked with Clint Eastwood and Michael Bay, and all the way down to first time directors, and you kind of see what works and what doesn't work, at least for me, or what works and what doesn't work for other actors and different crews and everything else. And so I sort of I had built this sort of toolbox along the way, and that proved to be essential when it came time to direct. I was very comfortable on set and sort of understood the different departments and what needed to happen. It was all the stuff beforehand, right? The pre-production and the post-production that I never get to see as an actor. So that was really fascinating and challenging in its own ways.
Yeah, it must have been so exciting because, like you said, you've had a 20-year span of like being in this industry. So to kind of be the one to helm the entire production and be like the captain of the ship must have been like a really cool, exciting approach.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as an actor, right, it's like you oftentimes do not have any sort of control, right? You come into a world that's already been created around you. You do your thing and then you leave. And then, a year later or something, you see the movie and you're like, oh, is that what they can chop up your performance, they can do whatever. You really don't have any sort of control in the thing for the most part. So it was nice maintaining that and being like, I'm very specific on sort of tonally what I want here. And it was just surrounding yourself with really talented people and collaborating in that sense.
So did you go the Clint Eastwood route and just do like one take per scene, or were you just like, let my actors work. Let's see what they can do. Let's breathe a little bit.
Sometimes because of our budget and the time frame we were on, that's all we had was one take. That's not necessarily how Clint Eastwood is doing it, but yeah, I mean, totally. Like, Clint Eastwood does this cool thing where he never says action or cut.
Oh,
I found that to be fascinating. He learned that from working on westerns, and every time the directors yelled action, it's like the horses would buck up, and
yeah.
oh, that's what actors are doing too, right? Like you're relaxed and you're hanging out, and then they say action, and you like get into character.
Mhm.
So it's like if I don't do that, it retains this sort of naturalism. So we tried that from time to time. I tried out like different processes as I went, and I think that, that's the other part of it is not just from the director's side, but from the acting side. I think a lot of first-time directors are nervous to work with actors because actors speak a different language. Everybody has their own process, and you need
Yeah.
to, what works for one actor is not going to work for the other. So I had seen that on sets, and as an actor, I was like, oh, I'm approaching it from this angle. This actor is approaching it. He has a very different way of working. So like I was well versed with that, and that proved to be kind of really helpful when I went to directing. Yeah.
Did you have a scene in Marmalade that you were looking like most forward to directing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the without giving anything away, like the salsa dancing, like I had some imagery for that I was like, what is the most like sort of from Baron's perspective, right? Like what would be the most like romantic, kind of idealistic, we're criminals, baby, and like now and I just immediately thought of like that he thinks like just salsa dancing or some sort of like flamenco, like that to him is just the most like exotic, romantic
Mhm.
fantasy ever. So like in my mind, I was always like, oh, I knew I wanted that in the film, and I was like super excited to shoot that. So that was a lot of fun.
And was that actually them two like dancing in it, or
It was not those guys, the actors were like dying to do it. They're like, let us do it, let us do it. And I was like, guys, we don't have time or the budget to like get you dancing lessons. This and that.
yeah,
Like, we'll be fine. I was like, show me a little something. And like they were kind of like doing I was like, no, 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 no. I need like spins. I need like the whole thing.
yeah.
So we found some local professional dancers and like put them in the getup. And like I just, it's like it is this fantasy sequence. So I
Mhm.
wanted it to I wanted them to be like really good, and to be
Yeah.
like
You wanted to
they're
feel
not.
like a fantasy.
Yeah, like I like the idea that you go, that's probably not the actors doing that, it's like part of that escapism.
So now, like with the first one under your belt, like do you have another genre you want to tackle? Because you've directed a heist film and wrote it, and you've
Yeah.
also co-written a rom-com with Justin Long. What else do you want to tackle next?
God, it's a good question. I'm writing another film right now, but it is sort of within the heist world again, but sort of more in the art world this time.
Will you be in this art heist type film possibly?
I'm not terribly interested just yet until I get sort of more accustomed to directing of like wearing the two hats. Like I really like just sort of focusing on one job, and
Mhm.
I'm amazed that actors and directors can do that, that they can jump back and forth behind and in front. But yeah, for now it's sort of like just kind of crafting the stories I like to tell, and hopefully getting a chance to sit in the director chair again.
Well, it was a pleasure chatting with you today, and I'm very much looking forward to whatever you do next. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.